guy came up with a theory, about 15 years ago called leapfrog evolution, where you'd have a lizard lay an egg and a bird would hatch out of it. Isn't that great? In other words, these massive leaps of, 15,000 mutations in one shot, and bingo, because this fit the fossil record. And, of course, each one proves that everybody else is totally wrong, and so the question that must be asked now that the Supreme Court has said that evolution is science and creation is a fraud is, which theory were they talking about?
Yeah,
I'm not sure whose it was, because you talk to, you go to one school and you have one professor for biology and you go through with that person and you get that, and you go to another school and this person believes that your last professor was a kook. It's truly amazing because there is no one theory. That's fine. That's what science should be able to look at itself, look at its theories and rip it apart. Okay, so I've got no problem with there being numerous theories. What I've got a problem with is the idea that this overriding theory has been set up as some sort of shrine on an altar that you bow down and sacrifice your students to. That's what bothers me.
So which theory is it that they're actually teaching in school and presenting as fact?
Depends on which professor you have when you get into the higher levels.
Well, where are the textbooks coming from?
Well, that depends on the textbook writer. I mean, if you've got a textbook that was written by a guy who's more into paleontology than you are into a textbook written by a guy who's into genetics, they're coming from different directions. Now, most textbooks, obviously, for use in a public school, are going to be so basic that the main differences between all these different theories of evolution are not going to be brought out very clearly. But once you start getting into the college level, then things start changing a great deal. 278-5555 is the phone number. We're going to take a phone caller here in Glendale, and this is Ken. Hi, Ken.
Hi, Jim.
How you doing?
Okay, buddy. Say, if you're expecting a lot of phone activity on that subject today, I don't think you're going to get it. Everybody that's listening agrees with you. The audience you get generally are Christians like us, and there's really not a lot of reason to call to tell you that we agree with you.
You don't want to vent your spleen at the Supreme Court?
Well, no, because you've already said it all, and I think that any born-again Christian takes your position.
Well, no, wait a minute. Let me ask you something about that, Ken. That brings up a very interesting point. I know many Christians, many born-again Christians, that don't take my position.
Well, obviously, they're wrong.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Ken. No, but seriously, let me give you an example.
Serious?
Let me give you an example. I went to a Christian college. I went to Grand Canyon College. But there are no science professors there who are creationists. None. Most of them are Christians, though. They believe in what is called theistic evolution, which means that they believe that God started the process, and some of them believe that God directed it, some of them don't. But eventually what it boils down to is about 25,000 years ago, in this viewpoint, God took two highly evolved primates and infused into them spirits, and they were Adam and Eve. And whether a person believes that that process was directed by God or not, you have to ask the particular individual. But this is called theistic evolution. It provides for God, and yet it does not say that God created in the way that the Bible seems to indicate that he did. But they would say, well, we're not given the mechanics of creation in the first chapter of Genesis or anything like that. And there are a large number of people that come down that direction.
Yeah.
Had you ever heard of that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, but I'm sure that everybody that's listening to you has heard of that, so I shut up and let you explain it.
Well, what do you think about that, though?
Well, I think it's appalling, that we have people who are calling themselves Christians that are taking that stance, and especially and regrettably, they are teaching that stance in our colleges and in our seminaries. And I just don't understand why people don't read the Bible. And every issue that comes up on television and even in this Saturday supplement, this religious supplement that's in the Arizona Republic every Saturday. The people that write that and the people that they quote simply don't read the Bible.
Well, I'll agree. I am not a theistic evolutionist. I am a creationist. But
Yeah.
let me say one thing, though. There is one theory of theistic evolution that does not drive me right up the wall. In other words, I'm not going to have a problem going out witnessing to someone with someone who believes this, okay? I don't have a problem with it. I think what's important theologically on this subject is the fact that the Bible says that man once was in a position that he no longer is, that there was a fall, that there is sin. Paul said that all men die because of Adam's fall.
Yeah. Are you getting the gap theory between Genesis 1 and Genesis 2?
No, that's not theistic evolution.
No, but I mean, is that what you're alluding to there?
No, not at all. The gap theory, which I personally happen to hold to myself,
You too.
is not a theistic evolutionary viewpoint because that allows for special creation.
Right.
But what I'm talking about here is the idea is it's important to me that in any understanding we have, man once had a position with God that he no longer has and needs a redeemer to bring him back into that relationship that was lost. Now, evolution itself obviously denies that. And in fact, liberal theologians who, of course, deny creation, I remember reading a book called Wrestling with Romans by John A.T. Robinson, and he was a liberal theologian. And when Paul said in Romans 5, as I recall, that in Adam all men die, John A.T. Robinson said, well, of course, we know this isn't true, but Paul didn't know that. And we all, tried to, keep our lunches down after reading it. It just really made me sick. But this type of viewpoint is very common. And in one form of theistic evolution, there is a point at which Adam and Eve existed, they had a proper relationship with God, and they fell from that. Now, I still see it's reading a lot into the Bible, but a person who takes that position could say that once those spirits were infused in Adam and Eve, they would not have died, therefore death could be the result of that. But even then, you've got a problem in the fact that Paul says that death in the entire creation is due to man's fall. And so it just doesn't really fit, but I can see why someone might take that position. That's the only one that I would be a little bit nicer to than anything else. Okay?
Well, yeah, one other quickie thing there. Where can I get a copy of the Humanist Manifesto 1 and 2?
Well, that's interesting. I think you could order it through like B. Dalton or Walden or something, because it's published by Prometheus Books back in New York. I just order them directly from Prometheus. They're only about $2 or $3. They're just a little paperback thing. But Prometheus Books is the one who has it, and the Manifestos 1 and 2 are bound together in one small paperback book. And if Walden's or B. Dalton could